The young woman wiped her tears and whispered, "I can't take it anymore, Ren. He treats me like trash." But what she didn't know was that the man standing silently outside the door, the one who heard every word, was Caleb Monroe, the CEO of the entire restaurant chain. And within hours, he would turn the whole power structure upside down. It was 6:47 p.m. on a Friday night when Caleb Monroe pulled into the parking lot of Monroe's Kitchen, the newest location in Birmingham, Alabama. The neon glow of the sign buzzed softly above the entrance, casting a pale yellow hue over the row of parked cars. He sat in his silver Chevy Tahoe for a moment, engine off, seats slightly reclined, just watching. From this angle, the place looked exactly like it should have: bustling, warm, inviting. The kind of restaurant built on Southern hospitality, good cornbread, and second chances. But something didn't feel right. Caleb reached over, grabbed the worn baseball cap off the passenger seat, and tugged it low over his eyes. No suit. No title. Just a gray hoodie, dark jeans, and sneakers. He wasn't here to be the CEO tonight. He was here to see what he couldn't read in a report. He stepped out, letting the door thud shut behind him, and headed for the front doors like any walking guest. Inside, the atmosphere was busy but off. Not chaotic, not loud, just tense. Families dug into baskets of fried catfish and sweet potato fries. A toddler tossed hush puppies onto the floor while her mom pretended not to notice. Couples shared mac and cheese, clinking forks, laughing just a little too loud. But behind the smiles, the staff told a different story. The hostess, no older than 16, barely glanced up from her tablet. "Booth or bar?" she asked flatly. Caleb nodded. "Booth's fine." She led him past the front line, weaving between tables, until they reached a corner seat with a clear view of the kitchen doors. "Some'll be right with you," she mumbled, already walking off. Caleb slid into the booth, his back straight, hands folded on the table. He wasn't here for the food, not tonight. He scanned the dining room with the calm detachment of a man trained to notice what others overlook. He saw the manager first, white Oxford shirt, sleeves rolled, clipboard in hand, chest puffed like he owned the air. Trevor Hale. Early 40s. Mouth tight. Eyes sharp, scanning the staff like a drill sergeant picking the next soldier to break. He barked something at the bartender, then turned and marched toward the kitchen. A young server, slender, mid-20s maybe, flinched as he passed her. She kept moving, tray balanced with 2 plates, her sneakers worn down at the heel. Caleb watched it all. The fake smiles. The rushed pace. The way the staff didn't speak unless they had to. One of the dish runners kept glancing toward the back hallway every few seconds like he was waiting for something, or someone. Caleb reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather-bound notepad. Not to write, just to hold. Years ago, it was where he jotted down spice ratios and marinade tweaks. These days, it reminded him of who he used to be before the franchise, before the boardrooms. His server arrived within a minute. "Evening, sir. Name's Jalen. Can I start you off with water, tea, or maybe something stronger?" Jalen was friendly, maybe 19 or 20, fast on his feet and polite without trying too hard. "Water's good," Caleb said, offering a soft smile. "And go ahead and bring me the shrimp and grits. No changes." "Good choice," Jalen nodded, already turning. Caleb sat back, eyes drifting toward the kitchen door. The food didn't worry him. The recipes were solid, he'd written most of them himself. But there was a pressure in the air tonight, something unsaid but loud. He could feel it in his gut. That's when he heard it. Soft. Fragile. A sound that didn't belong in a place like this. Crying. Not loud, just steady, quiet enough to blend into the background noise if you weren't paying attention. But Caleb was. The sound came from down the hallway where the employee lockers and break room were tucked away. He stood up, casually, like a man heading for the restroom, and turned toward the back. No one stopped him. The hallway smelled like lemon cleaner and fryer oil, the floor just a little sticky beneath his boots. As he got closer, the sound sharpened. A choked sob. Then a voice. I can't take it anymore, Ren. I'm trying my best, but he acts like I'm dirt. Like I should be grateful just to be here. Caleb stopped short of the door. He didn't peer inside. He just listened. It wasn't eavesdropping, it was something else. Something deeper. That voice, not familiar in name, but in weight. In exhaustion. And the raw ache of someone barely holding it together. Inside, two women sat on a bench near the lockers. One was the waitress he'd seen earlier, the one with the worn shoes and hollow eyes. Her name tag read Brianna. She was hunched over, hands clasped in her lap, sleeves rolled up, shoulders trembling. Next to her sat a broader woman in a kitchen apron, short curly hair tucked under a net. Renee, apparently. Her arm was wrapped around Brianna's back like she'd done this more than once. I asked about my overtime from last week, Brianna whispered, wiping her eyes on her sleeve. He said I was getting an attitude. Said I should be careful or I'll end up on the schedule's edge. Renee's jaw clenched. Girl, he says that to everybody. You could bring him breakfast and still get blamed if the salt shaker's empty. He ain't nothing but a power trip in khakis. Brianna let out a soft, bitter laugh. Marcus dropped one tray in front of table 5 and Trevor lit him up in front of the whole room. Said he was an embarrassment to the brand. The poor kid cried in the walk-in. Like, real tears. Renee muttered under her breath. This ain't how it's supposed to be. Outside the door, Caleb's fists slowly clenched. That was enough. He turned, walking back down the hallway, footsteps slow but certain. The shrimp and grits were probably cold by now, but he didn't care. He slid back into the booth, eyes hard, mind racing. Jalen passed by again. You all right, sir? Caleb looked up. Let me ask you something. What's Trevor like to work under? Jalen hesitated, glanced over his shoulder, then leaned down slightly. Strict, he said carefully. He don't like pushback. You keep your head down, you'll be okay. And if you speak up? Caleb asked. Jalen gave a tight smile. Then you might not be scheduled next week. Caleb nodded slowly. Thanks, Jalen. You've been solid. Then, quietly, he slid out of the booth and walked toward the back. But not to leave. This time, he wasn't just a quiet customer. He was the man whose name was on the front door. And someone had forgotten what that meant. Caleb didn't knock. He didn't need to. The paper sign taped to the office door, staff only, might have stopped any regular guest, but Caleb Monroe wasn't just another Friday night customer. He pushed the door open and stepped into the cramped little space that smelled like cheap aftershave and old receipts. Trevor Hale stood behind the desk, Bluetooth in one ear, fingers thumbing through a payroll printout like he actually understood what it meant. He looked up, startled, his brows tightening in a confused scowl. Sir, this area is restricted to staff. If you need the restroom, it's on the we need to talk, Caleb said evenly. His tone wasn't sharp, but it didn't bend. Trevor blinked, clearly trying to place him, then scanned Caleb's hoodie and cap. Nothing about him screamed authority. But the way he stood, the calm in his eyes, put Trevor on alert. Is there a problem? In the office, Caleb repeated. Trevor hesitated, clearly not used to being told anything by someone without a name tag. Look, I'm trying to close out a shift here, and Caleb reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. With one smooth motion, he flipped it open and slid out a black corporate card embossed with the Silver Monroe's Kitchen logo. Below it, in clean serif print, Caleb Monroe, founder and CEO. Trevor's jaw twitched. His lips parted like a question was forming, but nothing came out. Caleb didn't wait. He tilted his head toward the desk chair. Trevor followed. Slowly. Unwillingly. The office was barely big enough for the both of them. A cheap desk, a corkboard with old labor schedules, a dusty filing cabinet in the corner. Caleb sat in the chair facing the door. Trevor remained standing, arms crossed tight over his chest like a student about to be scolded. I didn't know you were coming, he finally managed. That was the point, Caleb said. Trevor let out a nervous half-chuckle. If I'd known, I'd have, what? Told your staff to smile harder? Turn up the music? Clean up the mess just long enough for me to leave again? The silence that followed wasn't just awkward. It was loaded. Trevor's gaze darted toward the hallway like he was hoping for a fire alarm. Or a miracle. Caleb leaned back, letting the weight of the moment settle. I just listened to one of our servers sobbing behind the lockers because she's afraid to come to work. You want to explain that? Trevor's shoulders shifted uncomfortably. Staff complain sometimes. It happens. I run a tight ship. We can't have people getting soft or taking advantage. Who's taking advantage? Caleb cut in. Brianna? For asking about her overtime? Marcus? For dropping a tray and getting publicly humiliated? Trevor's face changed. Not to concern, but calculation. He was looking for a spin, a way out. Caleb didn't give him one. You embarrassed a 19-year-old in front of customers. You told a line cook with a leg injury that if he couldn't stand for 10 hours, he could find the door. You cut hours, you pressure people into silence, and you think because nobody's called HR that it means you're doing your job. With respect, Trevor said, lips tight, this location hit target last month. Great Yelp reviews. Customers are happy. Are the people who make the food happy? Caleb asked quietly. Because if they're not, none of it means a damn thing. Trevor opened his mouth to reply, but Caleb stood. Not to intimidate, just to end the conversation. You're going home early tonight. Excuse me? Clock out. Go home. I'll take it from here. Trevor's eyes narrowed, but he knew better than to argue. He opened a drawer, pulled out his keys, and brushed past Caleb without another word. As the door closed behind him, Caleb exhaled once. Deep. Measured. Then he stepped out into the hallway. The sounds of the kitchen were still there, orders called, fryers sizzling, but something had shifted. A few staff looked up when he passed, sensing something was off. Caleb headed back into the dining room. Jalen saw him first. Everything all right, sir? Can you do me a favor? Caleb asked. Let the staff know we're having a quick meeting at close. Paid time. 5 minutes. Jalen nodded, eyes widening just a little. Sure. Yes, sir. By the time the last guest left and the floors were swept, the entire team had gathered near the hostess stand. Caleb stood where the manager usually made announcements, next to the schedule board, beneath a framed photo of the original Monroe's kitchen back in Mobile. Brianna stood near the back, arms crossed, eyes wary. Marcus leaned against the mop handle, fingers fidgeting. Renee, hand still in her apron, watched like someone waiting to see if this was real or just another performance. I won't take up much of your time, Caleb said, voice calm but deliberate. But I need to say something. The room quieted instantly. This restaurant has my name on the sign. My family's name. When I opened the first one, I did it with borrowed pans and hand-me-down recipes. But I did it because I believed food could build something real, something better. A good meal, fair work, and dignity on both sides of the table. He paused, letting the words sink in. Somewhere between the board reports and the expansion plans, I stopped checking in the way I used to. And that's on me. What I saw tonight, what I heard, wasn't just mismanagement. It was fear. Fatigue. People being talked down to and told to stay quiet. That ends now. There was no applause. Just a stillness that meant people were listening. Caleb continued. I'd like to speak with each of you, one by one. 5 minutes. No consequences. Just truth. He looked directly at Brianna. Because I can't fix what I can't hear. They started filtering in one at a time. Jalen went first. Sat across from Caleb in the office, hat off, hands nervously twisting. I like working here, he said quietly. I really do. But Trevor made it feel like if you opened your mouth, you were already out the door. He'd cut my hours once just because I asked if we could switch stations for a shift. Caleb nodded, jotting it down in a black notebook. Anyone else I should talk to? Tina, Jalen said. She never complains, but she's hurting. You'll see. Next came Tina. Mid-50s. Strong arms. Quiet dignity. She limped in, sat down slowly. He knew my leg was acting up. Arthritis. Told him a mat or a stool would help. Said if I couldn't keep up, there were plenty of younger cooks looking for hours. Her lips didn't tremble, but her voice cracked. I've been here since the doors opened. Then Renee. He docked me an hour last week, she said. Claimed I clocked in late. But the system was down. I told him. He said I should have come in earlier just in case. I've been eating lunch in the stockroom to avoid him. And finally, Brianna. She didn't sit at first. Just stood in the doorway. You really didn't know? She asked. Caleb shook his head. I didn't. Then why now? She asked, voice hard. Why care tonight? Caleb thought for a moment. Because I started this to give people something better. And I hate the idea that I became just another boss who stopped paying attention. She stared at him, then slowly took the seat across. What do you want from us? Just honesty, he said. You give me that, and I promise you I'll give you a better place to work. She talked. About the late nights, the overtime that disappeared, the times Trevor made her feel small. I stayed, she whispered, because I believed in this place. Because I thought maybe someday it would believe in me, too. When she stood to leave, Caleb didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The weight in the room had shifted. He knew what had to come next. It wasn't about punishing Trevor. It was about rebuilding everything he'd let crumble in silence. And that would start the very next morning. The sun rose heavy over Birmingham that Monday morning, burning off the last stretch of weekend haze as traffic thickened along the avenues. At the far end of a quiet block, the windows of Monroe's kitchen remained dark. A handwritten sign taped to the front door read, "Opening late today for staff development. Thank you for your patience." Inside, the dining room had been cleared of customers and background noise. The only sounds were the shuffle of shoes on polished tile and the low hum of the ceiling fans overhead. By 8:15 a.m., every employee, front and back of house, had shown up. Some wore uniforms, others hoodies and sweats, unsure of what exactly staff development meant. No one had received a script. They were waiting, watching, unsure if this was a warning, a lecture, or something worse. Caleb Monroe walked in through the side door, no hoodie this time, just a rolled-up button-down and dark jeans. Still no entourage, no clipboard, no big-deal entrance. Under one arm he carried a black notebook. Under the other, a thin binder labeled Reset. He nodded quietly at a few familiar faces as he made his way toward the center of the room. Brianna stood near the host stand, her arms folded but looser than before. Renee leaned against the wall by the drink station, eyes sharp but less guarded. Marcus sat on an upside-down mop bucket, headphones half dangling from his neck. Even Tina was there, apron off, cane leaning against her knee. Caleb placed the binder on a center table and looked around. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. First, he said, thank you. Every one of you who stayed late Friday, who spoke honestly, who trusted me with your stories. It mattered. And it still does. A few heads nodded. Others remained frozen, waiting for the catch. I came here to find out how things were going. I left Friday night knowing I'd failed to keep my eyes where they belonged, on the people who make this place work. He paused, then opened the binder. Starting today, there's a new code of conduct going into effect. But this time, it won't just sit on a shelf. We're doing it differently. He lifted a small clipboard and held it up. We're forming a peer advisory committee. Servers, cooks, dish crew, everyone gets a voice. And that voice helps decide how this location runs. How conflict is handled. How fairness is defined. No more top-down guessing games. A low murmur rippled through the staff. Someone, one of the newer bartenders, raised a brow. Like a workers' council? Caleb smiled. Exactly. He moved on. We're also bringing in a third-party team to audit the past 90 days of payroll. Every hour you weren't paid for, every shift you stayed late without compensation, we're fixing it. Full stop. No begging, no chasing, no waiting. The room shifted. People weren't smiling yet, but shoulders relaxed. The silence was no longer suspicious, it was skeptical hope cracking through. If you ever worked a job where your voice didn't matter, Caleb added, this isn't going to be that place anymore. Not if I have anything to do with it. Brianna blinked hard. Tina straightened her back slightly. Even Marcus let out a slow breath through his nose like someone releasing tension he didn't know he'd been holding. If you have something to say, say it, Caleb continued. If something's broken, tell us. If someone in power abuses that power, they're out. But if someone's struggling, they'll be coached, not crushed. We're not here to punish. We're here to build something better. For the next hour, the staff lingered in small clusters. Caleb didn't retreat to the office. He stayed in the kitchen, walking the line, asking questions. He helped unpack a new shipment of produce, noticed a prep station missing a sharp paring knife, wrote it down. He asked Monty, formerly just the cook with the limp, how the padded mat was working. Monty grinned and showed him the new stool someone had brought in that morning. Takes the edge off the long shifts, he said. Caleb clapped him on the shoulder. Good. You let me know if anything else would help. In the dish pit, Marcus had headphones in again. This time, he wasn't avoiding anyone. He was singing, low and off-key, but singing. You good? Caleb asked. Marcus nodded. Better, he said. Feels safer. You deserve that, Caleb replied. Every single shift. As he moved toward the front again, he caught sight of Brianna restocking menus. She didn't flinch this time. Still doing surprise visits, she asked. Caleb chuckled. Can't help it. I talked to the new manager, she said. He's decent. Asked me to help with the new schedule rotation. Caleb raised an eyebrow. You say yes? She hesitated, then nodded. Eventually. Figured if someone's building the table, they might as well know how to set it right. He smiled. You've got leadership in you. Don't waste it waiting for permission. She looked at him for a beat, then murmured, That's something your dad told you? Caleb stared out the front window for a long moment. No. That's something I wish someone had told me when I was your age. 3 weeks later, Caleb returned on a Wednesday morning. No clipboard. No corporate tone. Just him, a hoodie, and coffee in hand. He walked in right after the morning prep started. The smell of biscuits and sausage gravy filled the air. There was a different energy now. Not perfect. Not polished. But real. Brianna was at table 4 setting syrup bottles in their caddy. She looked up, recognized him immediately, and nodded. Not forced. Not obligatory. Just acknowledgement. Caleb nodded back, slid into booth 7. A moment later, Jalen appeared with a fresh mug. Black, right? He asked. And we've got pecan waffles if you're hungry. Caleb grinned. You remembered? Jalen tapped his pen. First order you made here. I don't forget the good ones. As Jalen walked off, Caleb scanned the room. Keisha, one of the line cooks who used to avoid eye contact, was now training a new hostess by the register. Marcus was back at the dish pit with his headphones on, bobbing his head to a silent beat. Tina was prepping red beans with a fresh set of gloves and a padded stool tucked under her station. Monty waved from the grill line. Everything wasn't perfect, and it wasn't meant to be. But it felt human again. Like the place had a pulse. Like it belonged to the people working it. During a lull, Brianna slid into the booth across from him. "You're quiet today," she said. "I like to watch," he said, sipping his coffee. "See what feels different." She looked around. "Different good or different weird?" "Both," he said. She smiled. Small but honest. Then something unexpected happened. Marcus walked over, still in his gloves, carrying a folded piece of paper. "It's from my mom," he mumbled. "She said to give it to the guy who believed me." Caleb opened the note. The handwriting was careful, deliberate. "Thank you for seeing my son when someone else tried to make him invisible." Not everyone would. He folded it slowly and slid it into his pocket. He didn't say anything. Didn't need to. That moment wasn't about a speech. It was about showing up. And staying. Before he left, Caleb borrowed a Sharpie and walked to the old corkboard by the break room. He pinned a fresh white sheet of paper to the center and wrote in bold black ink, "If you want a team to listen to you, start by listening to them first." Caleb Monroe then he stepped back, nodded once to the room, and walked out. No applause, no ceremony. Just another man leaving a restaurant with a full heart and a quiet mind. Outside, the city kept moving, cars rushing past, people heading to shifts, schools, errands. But inside that restaurant, something had shifted. Not just the rules. Not just the management. The culture. The respect. The future. And Caleb knew the real work wasn't finished. But it had finally begun. In every business, no matter how large or small, the real foundation isn't the building, the branding, or the bottom line, it's the people. What happened inside that Monroe's Kitchen location is a reminder that leadership doesn't live in job titles or corner offices. It lives in listening. Caleb Monroe didn't walk in that night to rescue anyone. He came in with curiosity, and what he found challenged him to confront his own blind spots. That's the heart of this story, not just accountability for others, but accountability for ourselves. Real leadership means stepping into uncomfortable spaces, owning our silence, and doing the work to rebuild trust, not overnight, but one shift, one person, one conversation at a time. Too often in life, people are forced to suffer quietly because the person in charge isn't paying attention, or worse, doesn't care. But the truth is, when we stop listening to the people who do the heavy lifting, we start losing everything that made the mission worth building in the first place. Culture is not what's written in a handbook, it's what people feel when they walk through the door. It's how they're spoken to. It's how they're treated when no one is watching. So here's the takeaway: if you lead anything, whether it's a business, a family, a classroom, or a team, never let your title make you deaf. Create space for truth, even when it's messy. Correct what's broken, not just for show, but for the people whose lives are shaped by your decisions. And to those who've ever felt invisible at work, please remember, your voice matters. You deserve to be treated with dignity. The right leader will hear you, not just when you're loud, but especially when you're barely holding it together. Thank you for watching and listening. If this story moved you, or reminded you of a moment in your life where someone finally saw you, or where you chose to listen instead of lead with power, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. At US Instructive Stories, we believe every story is a seed. A seed for better workplaces. For braver conversations. For fairer communities. And we're so grateful you're here, helping us grow that vision, one powerful story at a time. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that speak to justice, kindness, and the courage to do better. Until next time, stay kind, stay aware, and keep showing up.